What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Triple H podcast, Happy Hour Hoops. It is just me and Steve today holding everything down for you guys. And don't get it twisted, guys. Don't forget, Happy Hour Hoops is brought to you guys by WinStreakz. WinStreakz is back. It's simple, guys. You pick 5 teams or 5 games. Excuse me. Yes. 5 games every day. You accumulate points based off those picks, and then you win cash prizes. NFL, NHL, NBA, of course. College basketball with March Madness.
Conference tournaments starting up.
Yes.
A lot of options.
Yes, everything, guys. So go download the WinStreakz app. Use our code HHH when you sign up to be a part of our giveaways down the road. Simple, HHH when you download the WinStreakz app. It's the best sports app out there, 100% free to play always, and 100 players win cash prizes every week up to $2,000. It's a no-brainer, guys. Go download the WinStreakz app. Like I said, though, me and Steve holding it down today for Happy Hour Hoops, and we have a good show for you guys. We have... we're going to talk about the East. I have another old man take to do at the end of the show. We might briefly mention Wemby, but we were discussing before the show. We'll probably save a whole lot of space and segment time for Wembenyama next week when Jake is back with us. We can really dive into almost a full season of Wemby now. It's been truly awesome. But Steve, how you doing after all that?
I'm doing good, Dunny. I'm doing good. This week was kind of a crazy one for the NBA. There were a lot of big games, a lot of big games coming up this week too, but a lot of injuries. A lot of injuries. We saw a few the past couple days that haven't been too great. The Mavs are winning, believe it or not. You know why they're winning? Because Daniel Gafford's been in the starting lineup. Shout out Daniel Gafford in the modern era. 28 consecutive made field goals. Jason Kidd is sick to his stomach right now. He's sicker than Jake is right now. Jason Kidd is the only person right now sicker than Jake because of Daniel Gafford being in the starting lineup. Mavs 5-0 when Gafford's in the starting lineup. He's made 28 consecutive shots. You know, I put it away for a week. The Luke MVP talks away for a week. Mavs got a charge now. They got a charge. They have huge games these next 2 days. Warriors, they're playing the Warriors, and then in OKC on back-to-back nights. So we'll see how that goes, but we're doing well.
Tough back-to-back right there.
A very tough back-to-back. Yeah. Curry's out tonight. We'll get into that later, but Curry's out tonight, so that's at least helps him a little bit tonight, I would think. But, you know, you can never count the Warriors out no matter who they got on the court, just the way the Warriors, their style of basketball has been for the past years. But outside of the NBA, Dunny, I gotta give us at least 1 minute for this because the conference tournaments have started in college basketball. They're pretty crazy. And I'll be honest with you guys, I've been locked in on the Mavs. I've been locked in the late night games. The 7-9, you know, the early games, usually Dunny's locked in because the Celtics are playing majority of the time. I've been focusing a lot on these conference tournaments, man. You're getting some wild basketball. And this is one of probably the nerdiest things we do, Dunny. We are, you know, everyone talks about the March Madness brackets.
I was just about to shout out your buddy Sean because it's incredible, bro.
We are in not just the March Madness brackets, the conference tournament brackets where we fill out every single conference. I'm talking all the way from like the ACC, Big 12, SEC, all the way down to the SWAC, the MEAC, every single game. My buddy got all the formulas programmed, so it's basically automated once you put your picks in, which is unreal how he did it. But I'll be honest with you, man, like it's taken away a little bit from the NBA besides like the Mavs and the late night games. But as a basketball fan, because you know what I say, Donnie, I'm not going to give bias to one league or another. You know I love the NBA.
Mm-hmm. Don't
I'm a
discriminate.
basketball fan at heart. We are at the best time of the season for basketball,
Oh yeah.
without question. March Madness, conference tournaments, which I consider postseason basketball, right? Because conference tournaments, unless you're going to get an at-large bid, you lose, your season's over. A lot of must-win games for a lot of teams. Postseason basketball for college basketball, both men's and women's, and the NBA playoff race is heating up. It is heating up. I'll
Yeah,
tell you
less
what.
than 20 games for I think every team now,
Yeah.
right?
I'm upset I missed last week because you guys were talking about the West. I think the West is one of the most interesting races we've seen in a long time. The
Mm-hmm.
East, I mean, it's what the race for second place at this point, which we'll dive into. But I am infatuated with these playoff races right now, just seeding in general and potential matchups. Because I looked at the West last week, but you look at the East this week too, Donnie. There's a lot of teams where it's like, man, I kind of want this team to fall to the 7th seed or the 8th seed, or I want
Yeah.
this team to move up to the 4 or 5 matchup. A lot of interesting teams.
And this type of season that the NBA is having, it kind of makes the play-in more exciting, right? Like
Absolutely.
we were introduced to it a couple years back. Not really sure how it was. It's been okay so far. I'd say I don't think it's been either bad or good really one way or another. I think it's just been all right. Yeah. But a year like this is where it can get exciting because both conferences, outside of the tippity top in the East, are super, super tight. You have like weird little injuries or kind of storylines at the bottom of both conferences, teams that are on the verge, teams that have, if you're talking about the Western Conference, teams that are always in the playoffs and now they're going to have to fight their way in. So, yeah, not only could these potential playoff matchups, even before that, the play-in is going to be awesome. And like Steve said, we're going to break down the entire East kind of like we did with the West last week. But as you guys know, we're always going to start with the news and the notes. And I think Steve alluded to this as well. Unfortunately, a bunch of injury news this week. Never really what you want to hear, but it is the reality of the NBA, starting with Benedict Mathurin, a guy we all love and really important player for the Pacers. He's going to be out for the season. He's getting surgery on his torn labrum. This just sucks, man. I mean, Indiana's so fun to watch as is. You had the Hallie injury earlier in the year after surging. Obviously, they go out, get Siakam. They kind of are able to get back to their ways a little bit. And then, this is just a tough blow for Mathurin as a player. And then obviously just the Pacers as a whole.
It's brutal because Mathurin was really starting to come into his own in his role. And we saw that kind of mainly after Buddy Hield to Philly, right? After Buddy Hield kind of got out of there, there's minutes they needed to fill. And what was our biggest, I guess, complaint or frustration with Ben Mathurin the past couple of years, Donnie, is the fact that we didn't know if he was a starter or if he was a guy who would come off the bench, like a 6-man, like a Malik Monk type of player. And when I watched Ben Mathurin, I was like, he's just got to work on his defense, a little bit. And he came a long way this season, but I really thought, Mathurin, and I think the Pacers did with the moves they made, was just going to be part of this core. He's always going to play the important minutes, whether he starts or, like I said, whether he's in that Malik Monk role. So, on paper, maybe when you look at his production, it may not be like this is the biggest loss, but I think this is a huge loss for the Pacers going into the playoffs. I think this is really going to mess with their rotations. I think this is going to put a lot of pressure on some of those other guards that they have. I know McConnell's been playing out of his mind lately. I know Naismith's been playing well, but I'll tell you what, Dunny, I mean, this is a very underrated loss, I would say, because when you watch Pacers games for the past, like I said, 2 seasons, when they start slow, it's usually Ben Mathurin coming off the bench who will go 4 or 5 from the field, just catch fire and get him right back in the game. He's a very emotional player too, which is what you need in the playoffs, right? You look at a guy like Tyrese Halliburton, very emotional, gets into it. Pascal Siakam, Ben Mathurin's right up there with them, where he shows it on the court. And to lose a guy like that, We'll see how it affects them, because I think we were both very high on the Pacers this year. I think I was saying they might be a sleeper team to maybe steal around or maybe, make a little bit of a run in the playoffs. This is a big loss. This is a really big loss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and right now they're the 6th seed, so if playoffs started today, they'd be playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, which, obviously they're dealing with their own injuries, but wouldn't be the easiest matchup if you're talking to a healthy Cavs team, and then obviously if you're down a important role player like you said with Mathurin. So, hopefully he makes a full recovery and he can be back better than ever next year. But yeah, tough loss for the Pacers. We'll see how it affects them down the stretch. Quite the opposite of a minimal loss, which we just explained we don't think Mathurin is, but it might seem that way for the Pacers. Steph Curry has missed just a little bit of time here for the Warriors. Expected to only miss a short period of time, but he's missed the last couple for the Warriors. And he's going to miss tonight. If you're listening live, it's Wednesday. He's going to miss Wednesday night against Steve's Mavs tonight.
Rest up, Curry. Don't rush him back. Rest him up, right? You don't need to play tonight.
Yeah.
Rest up, Curry. Get healthy for
Get
the
healthy.
postseason.
That's the number one thing.
Exactly.
But that's the thing, Steve. They're the 10 seed right now in the Western Conference. So yeah, I mean, get healthy for the postseason. They might not be sniffing the postseason if I think they're going to drop to 11 and the Warriors are going to, or the Rockets are going to surpass them? No. But the 10 seed is not the place you want to be.
Right. I think the top 10 are locked in the West at this point. It's just a matter of where they're going to fall, right, in the 10. And if you are the 10, you got to win 2 games just to get in. So it's a huge advantage to be in the top 8 besides the top 10. So you look at the Warriors. They've been playing really good as of late, and now this injury obviously slows them down because you lose Curry. Like it's a pretty important piece for the Warriors. But it'll be interesting, Dunny, because I feel like in the West, if you're not winning 5 of 7 games in like a 2-week span, you're falling behind. It really feels like this way. You're not going 7-3 in 10 games. It feels like you're losing ground. And for the Warriors that are already a game behind everyone else, they gotta win every game they can. They play the Mavs, who's another team who needs every win they can get because they had a little Jason Kidd hiccup there. But I mean, it's going to be interesting because I still see the Warriors as a threat tonight. Even without Steph Curry, this is a team that we've seen the Warriors style. We've seen their next man up mentality. We've seen Klay Thompson go off when Steph Curry doesn't play. Kuminga's having a career year. So this is kind of nerve wracking for me, Dunny. I feel like this is a Warriors team that's been playing good basketball. And Curry or not, they know how important every win matters. And you talk about a team. There's no other team in the West that has as much experience as the Golden State Warriors do when it's like you got to win games that matter. So we'll see. And I think Curry's going to be back soon too. And I believe
that's what the report sounded like. It wasn't supposed to be a serious injury. So
I believe Kings play the Lakers too, if I'm not mistaken, tonight. So I believe that's the 4 teams in the quote unquote play-ins. I believe all play each other tonight. I believe it's Kings Lakers tonight. I don't quote me on that. I'm going to tell you, right?
Kings Lakers. Yeah.
So
the Kings, they're on a back-to-back too because they just beat up on the Bucks last night.
Killed the Bucks.
Yeah, which was
we'll call it a back-to-back, but they didn't even need to play most of the fourth quarter. So that Kings team, though, when they get going, when Malik Monk starts scoring the way he does off the bench and the way Sabonis has been, you know how much I've hyped up Luka for MVP. Sabonis has been as valuable as anyone for the Kings this year, as any player to their team. It's going to be interesting. The Warriors need the win. Obviously, the Mavs need the win, but
yeah, well, that's the thing. So, like we said, Steph, he hasn't missed too many games, and he's expected back, but it's weird because I'm with you in that sentiment where you're still kind of fearful of the Warriors. You still think they can win any game, even without Steph Curry, just because of their pedigree. And, obviously, Clay's no scrub. Draymond's still doing his thing, whatever.
Kuminga, been a ball.
Yeah, Kuminga, all of them, right? Like, you trust a lot of the guys on this team. Pods has been great for them this year. But it's just so funny because they lost, they ended up splitting because they played them pretty closely. But the Spurs, they lose. They didn't have Steph, but the Spurs didn't have Wemby, and they drop a game like that. It's such a head scratcher. But then, like you said, going into tonight against this Mavs team, you wouldn't be surprised if the Warriors won without Steph. And it's like, that's the reason they found themselves at the 10 spot, and it's interesting.
That's why I'm a little terrified tonight too, right? Mavs are home. They have a back-to-back tomorrow where they're going on the road to OKC. I could just see the Warriors catching them catching them in the right game, right? Where maybe the Mavs are just looking ahead to the Thunder game. We've seen the NBA online try to build a Luka SGA rivalry, Mavs Thunder rivalry, and it's worked. Trust me, it's worked between both fan bases. But this is a game that terrifies me because Steph or no Steph, the Warriors are always going to be a threat, and they know right now the Warriors do not want to play 2 must-win games against either Luka or LeBron or the Kings for that matter.
Yeah.
No way.
I know. I mean, I was talking about the play-in a minute ago. Like the play-in in the West, the East could be entertaining too. The play-in in the West is just going to be entertaining whether we like it or not. There's we have no choice. It's going to be awesome.
We could get like historic ratings for a play-in game if it's Lakers Warriors in a single elimination. Are you kidding me?
Oh my God. Yeah. I kind of need that at this point. So, hopefully time just, the Mavs can move out of the play-in. I'll grant you that, but hopefully time freezes and we get Lakers Warriors. But let's fly through the rest of these notes here. I'll continue on the injury train just to bang these out. But Albert Sengun, it's tough, man. He was carted off the floor, looked real bad at first. He got an MRI on both his knee and his ankle on his right leg. It ended up just being a severe ankle injury, so nothing too serious as far as keeping him out for extended time next season. But they did just decide to shut him down for the year, which is probably the smart play. I mean, we were just talking about how we both think the Rockets probably aren't catching the Warriors and getting into that 10 spot. But, I mean, he was easily the brightest spot of the Rockets and then, just one of the better young players in the league, Sengun. He had just had a 45-point outing right before this injury. Yep. So
he was
obviously
putting up numbers. I mean, besides just that game, putting up numbers after the break. And this is a guy, I know Max will probably win it, but he would have been my vote for most improved player. And, I think if the Rockets were probably a game or two out of the play-in, maybe a different story, who knows? But this is the smart play, Dunny. I mean, this is, you have to. This is the future of the Houston Rockets. This is the guy you want to build around. I know a lot of people thought it would have been Jalen Green a couple of years ago, and I still think Jalen Green's a solid player. I still think Jabari Smith's a solid player.
Sengun is at this point undoubtedly the best player on the Rockets, right?
Without question. Yeah. He's the guy you build around. Without question. Yeah. I mean, I know we were saying a little bit at the start of your kind of poor man's Jokic, but you can see it.
No, he's just getting legitimate comparisons to Sabonis and Jokic now.
Yeah.
Deserving, man.
And I think it is. And this is a guy who I think is just going to continue to develop his outside shot. His playmaking's already there. His post moves are arguably top 5 in the NBA. If you watch him play. So this is a guy that
his little shot put floater in the paint too it's something that no one else is doing, and it's borderline unstoppable. Yeah, he's super fun to watch. We're glad it's nothing with the knee, nothing too serious there with the leg injury, but obviously does suck if you're a Rockets fan who had any hope of maybe. Because, it's not impossible for them to catch the Warriors. We just don't think it's likely. And
it's more so the teams they're trying to catch, right?
Yeah.
4 games back or 4.5 games back isn't the craziest thing with 20 to play. But it's all right, you're 4 games back of Curry, LeBron, and Luka led teams. Good luck.
Yep.
That's where it's okay. That means it's a little tougher to catch those teams. So I understand why they did it. But future's bright in Houston. Future's bright. I still think the future's bright in Houston. I like what they've done to kind of start building this team, shaping this team. And like I said, I think Sengun is the guy you build around. He is the future. He's the franchise.
I agree. Other injuries, Saddiq Bey out for the season with a torn ACL. This, it's interesting because I think the Hawks are in a similar situation. Yeah, they're 10 in the East, so another play-in squad trying to make it. They lose Saddiq Bey, who's going to be a free agent this summer, so that really is the worst part of it here. If you're just individually Saddiq Bey out for the season with a torn ACL, have a chance to make some money. So hopefully it's not too grueling of a recovery for him, and we see where Saddiq Bey lands next year.
And you brought quietly good player too. This is an important player for the Hawks. He averaged almost 14 a game, I think 6 rebounds, shooting decent splits, not nothing crazy. but it's a guy who's just been a solid option for basically his entire career. Like, no one's ever going to be like, oh, look at Saddiq Bey. He did have a 50-point game. We'll never take that away from him. He had a 50-point game. I think it was last year, a couple years ago. But he's just a solid option. And it's, I don't want to say the Hawks season is over, but the way the Hawks have gone with the injuries, it's like they're probably going to be the 10 in the play and just lose whoever they play as the 9. It just looks that way.
Certainly seems that way. Speedy recovery for Saddiq Bey. You brought this to my attention right before we started recording. Kawhi Leonard left the game Tuesday night with a back injury, expected to play, I believe. I don't know if they play tonight. I think tomorrow night.
He's traveling with the team, which is a good sign. He's traveling with the team because that was up in the air originally, because I believe last night they sent him home. Like, it wasn't like he came back on the bench after. They sent him home after he went to the locker room, which is always a giant red flag, especially with Kawhi. But he is traveling with the team. However, Donnie, I mean, if we're talking about injuries that linger, this is not the news you want to hear for the Los Angeles Clippers. Not at all. I mean, this is a guy, it's like, it doesn't matter what the injury could be with Kawhi, right? It could be like a little sore pinky. And then next thing you know, it just keeps lingering and gets worse. That's my biggest fear with Kawhi, because the back that's nothing to just not worry about. I get it. He's traveling with the team, good news, but it doesn't make you feel good, because I was telling you before the show, Dunny, Kawhi, I think, played 58 to 64 games this year for the Clippers. Most he's played in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like, fewest games he's missed in a long time. So we'll see. I think it's great news he's traveling with the team, but this is the last guy you want to have an injury just pop up like that.
Yeah, and this is just the worry with the Clippers team in general, right? Like this, what's going to stop this Clippers team? Injuries. That's what we've said all year. Or, if you want to go the angle of Harden or PG not performing in the playoffs, that was live too. But it was kind of always a combination of both, because Harden's a guy who's, he's been durable for the most part, but he's had his injuries. Paul George has had his injuries. Obviously, we know Russ is out with a fractured hand right now. PG's been in and out of the lineup lately. And then, Kawhi now with the back stuff, which you hope doesn't stick around. But like you mentioned, you never know with the back injuries. It's always tricky. So, yeah, I mean, the Clippers, who have lost 2 straight, they are slowly, I emphasize slowly, dropping a little bit in the West. I mean, they're the 4 seed right now, but Clippers have the Timberwolves have about 3 games on them. Pelicans are surging too. They're 5 right behind them.
They're on fire.
Yeah, depending on, where Kawhi is at, the Pelicans certainly could pass them. They're only 2 games back, and we have just under 20 games to go in the season. So, like the rest of the guys who were injured, we hope Kawhi can get back on the court soon as well. Our stuff from earlier in the week: Rudy Gobert was fined $100,000 for his comments about the refs being influenced by sports betting. I didn't mind his comments. I didn't mind the fine. The craziest thing I saw about this: Draymond Green was fined only $25,000 for choking out Rudy Gobert on the court. Right. And Rudy Gobert got fined $100,000 for saying something about the refs. It's just the side-by-side images were just hilarious. It's like fined $100,000 and it's just like him making a money gesture, and then fined $25,000 and it's just him getting choked out by Draymond.
I think partly for the fine, even though $100,000, to Rudy Gobert, it's fine. We saw the deal he made. But I think part of the reason for the fine is, how much have we heard about the refs all year long, right? How much have we heard about complaints about the refs all year long? All these teams trying to say, oh, this foul at the end, we're gonna protest that. All the players complaining. Who was it? Was it Mike Brown who brought a laptop out to show a call in the press conference in one game? Like, I can't.
Oh, yeah. That sounds vaguely familiar.
It was just like
foul discrepancy or something, maybe.
Yeah. All the complaints about the refs. So we've heard that all year long. And then what else has happened in the past year or two? Sports betting has absolutely blew up. And the last thing the NBA wants is any of their players insinuating that bad calls are because of sports betting, because that is detrimental to the league, the integrity, and a lot of players' careers. If you know what I mean, if that ever got out of hand, we've seen scandals in previous sports before like that. So I think that was kind of a shut your mouth, Rudy. Like, this is the last
Yeah.
thing we want. We already know what Rudy, he already caused a little bit of an issue with the whole COVID touching the mic. So his track record isn't great for putting NBA not in the best spot. So I think this was just like, yeah, Rudy, like, that's stop. There's one thing to complain about the refs. Don't try to say it's influencing sports betting. Because we have enough people with the tinfoil caps. We have enough people trying to say that already, right? You have someone lose their $5 parlay and be like, oh, because so-and-so, it's rigged, this and that.
Yeah, it's bullshit. But yeah, it's, Rudy, I feel like Rudy kind of always finds himself in these situations. So like once a year, obviously we know his most famous, him rubbing the microphones at the start of COVID. I saw a lot of quote tweets on the initial report about this being like, I saw Rudy Gobert's name and I just got flashbacks to the start of the pandemic. So I thought, at least we were able to have some fun with it. But
the next bubble is for sports betting.
Yeah. The pandemic of sports gambling and referees. I think that will do it for the last piece of news here, because this is interesting and everyone's trying to get their Euro big man, like we were talking about Sengun earlier. The Wizards signed 7-footer Tristan Vukcevic on a 2-year deal, who they drafted in the second round in 2023 out of Serbia, I believe. It kind of interesting, but I actually like this. This is probably the one positive I've seen the Wizards do in quite some time this season. Bringing a guy for the last couple of weeks, a 7-footer from overseas. They tend to work. They tend to work out lately. So
you're not kidding.
Yeah, I don't blame the Warriors, or not the Warriors, the Wizards, for making this attempt, and it can't make them any worse. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I'll be honest, I don't know too much about this guy. Haven't really watched much of him in the past couple of years, but you look at the Wizards, they're completely out of it. They're tanking. I really do prefer when the teams that are completely out of it, season's over, bring in some guys, see what you got. Call up some guys, see what you got. Get guys from overseas, like, see what you have talent-wise, because you never know. Could be a solid option next year. So I like when they do that. I think it was kind of Lofton at the end of last year for the Grizzlies when they were out. He played a little bit, and obviously he doesn't have a role now, but it's good to see different guys like this get runs at the end of the year. It's just see what you have.
Yeah, I definitely like it. So that will do it for news and notes. And now we can get into our long question here, I'm sure, about the Eastern Conference. And Steve, I'll pose it to you like this. We both have a very strong six. I remember Jake were texting, trying to figure out if they were even beatable.
Yeah.
Do you hold that same sentiment now?
Oh, you know how I've been, Dunny. I've been on the Celtics side for quite some time of just how dominant this team is when they're fully healthy, where I just don't think there's any other team in the NBA, let alone the East, that can match up 1 through 5 with, their starting lineup at full strength. Drew Holiday, Derek White, Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Porzingis. And the NBA is making it easy for us. 9.5 game lead now in the East. They seem to be trending in the right direction when all the other quote unquote threats in the East are trending in the opposite direction, right? You go back maybe a little over a month ago when everyone's going off about the Knicks, how the Knicks are, and then the injury bug hit them like no other. You talk about the Philadelphia 76ers, they lost Joel Embiid. We don't even know if he'll be back. Embiid, they're in the play-in right now. The 76ers have fallen all the way to the play-in. And then the Milwaukee Bucks feel like the most inconsistent team I've seen in the East. And part of that we talked about with the whole Doc Rivers. We just didn't think it'd make sense. Then the news with Dame comes out. And then you have the Cavs, who once the Cavs started making up a little bit of ground, then the injury bug hit them. And I'm looking at this right now, Donnie, and you give the Celtics home court advantage throughout the playoffs, essentially. They're 9.5 games up. They're not choking that lead. should be healthy coming into the playoffs. I just don't see another East team that's going to take them more than probably 6 games in a series. I really don't. And, I know Boston fans probably have, I guess flashbacks or nightmares seeing the Miami Heat as the 8 right now. That's probably the last team you'd want to see in the first round because that's going to be a war regardless. But I still think the Celtics probably win that in 5. Like I don't see another East team. I said it before we got on. I think it's the race for second place in the East. I think it's who's going to go to the Eastern Conference Finals because I really don't see any of these teams beating a healthy Boston Celtics team in 7 games, especially the way that their depth has been playing. I know we talked about Peyton Pritchard a little bit the other night, Dunny, but these guys just step up. Just everyone seems to play so well, and it's one of those things where I know a lot of people will hate on Jason Tatum online sometimes for end games, or he's always not taking over this game, or look at his stat line. He doesn't need to. He does not need to. It's like a different guy every single night. So I'm locked in on the Celtics coming out of the East. I really don't see any of the other Eastern Conference teams as a threat.
Yeah, sorry, I had to step out there for a second. My Wi-Fi was
good.
back. I was listening, and yeah, man, it's kind of crazy. I almost fell into the media trap a little bit after the 2-game skid after the 11-game win streak, because at the peak of the 11-game win streak was that Warriors game. That was the 11th win. That was when they won by 50, and that's when me and you were both talking crazy. The Cavs wasn't even the thing that brought me back down to earth. Obviously, it was the Nuggets game. I wanted to at least split the season series with them. That wasn't the case. I still don't think that means we can't beat them, obviously. I think that'd be foolish to think that way because, there's a 7-game series. Everything's different in the playoffs, whatever, all of that stuff. But I did come back down to earth a little bit. And then, the last couple games here, just winning on the road, right? Like they had to go to Phoenix and deal with KD, who was going nuclear.
He's been going crazy.
Yeah, he dropped 45. The Jays were able to close it out in the fourth quarter. Then it's not the toughest teams, but they have a back-to-back in Portland and Utah. Take care of business there. All these games without Porzingis, by the way. And then last night they, were missing a lot of guys. So I'm still very confident. Am I at the peak of confidence I once was at some point of the season? No, but I mean, it's just I don't know what else to think at this point. It's like I'm with you. I don't really know if anyone else can compete. I think it is probably just the Celtics and everyone else in the East right now. And I don't know. It might seem or feel a little foolish to think that way, but right now the only team that I could even envision beating us in the playoffs or in a 7-game series, I think would be Milwaukee. And obviously,
really,
yeah, I do, because I don't know. I kind of had the thought about the Heat at a certain point of the season, but like they just really haven't seemed to figure it out or turn it around in any capacity. I thought they would have at least started to surge a little bit by now. And I know,
they're just inconsistent, but when they're good, they're good.
Yes, I know. And it's that thing that that's what's scary about the Heat. You think this way. This is how I thought last season. But I do think the Celtics team is different this year. I know the Heat are too. They made some adjustments and some bulked up the roster with Terry Rozier coming in and everything. But I really truly think it right now it's Milwaukee. I would love to see the Knicks healthy with Brunson, Anunoby, and Randall all back, because I think that would be an interesting series. But
any update on Randall?
OG's back. Brunson obviously back. The last thing I heard was that it was still a bit away for Randall. Okay. I know originally it was, I think, like a month or a month and a half timeline. We're probably coming up on a month since he's been out, but yeah, the Knicks.
I will say that Knicks team, if they're fully healthy, they're a little scary.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Probably the Knicks, probably Bucks and Knicks right now. Obviously, Cavs. This is the thing. I think I'm confident in a 7-game series against any of these teams. There are teams that I think will be able to push us 6, maybe 7 games, and that would probably be the Bucks and the Knicks for me right now.
Yeah, I could see that. I think the Celtics honestly handled the Bucks in 5. Just the way you're built. Like I said, you have the Dame Lillard killer with Drew Holiday. That is the one guy who shut him down his entire career. And
Mhm.
then with Giannis, I mean, I've been watching the Bucks, and even when the Bucks lose, Giannis will still put up these wild numbers. It's something about the Bucks this year. I don't know if they're getting older, but they just don't seem to have it for the full 48. Every time I watch a Bucks game, besides a couple of their wins when they're playing a team that where Giannis can just overtake, it just feels like they have that 5-minute stretch where they just are allowing such good looks for the opposing team. And you cannot do that against Boston. That is the
Yeah.
last team you can do that against. And so that's the big difference for me with Milwaukee last year to this year is I just feel like before Milwaukee, it was always a tough fight against Milwaukee because they're pretty consistent throughout the entire game. Giannis would never let him get on go on a huge run or a team go on a huge run against them. And even if they were shooting cold, they found ways around it. I just feel like I watched some Bucks games this year and there's just stretches. And you saw it last night against the Kings too, where it's just they're just allowing open look after open look, and you cannot do that in today's NBA, especially against the Boston Celtics, who are a historically good shooting team right now.
Yeah.
So that's where I don't see Milwaukee as a threat. Cleveland, I kind of feel the same way with you. I'm not too threatened by Cleveland, despite the Dean Wade game beating
Yeah.
beating the Celtics. But even when Cleveland's fully healthy, I think we're going to have the same conversation we had last year in the playoffs, where are you playing Mobley or Allen? Because you can't play both against the Celtics. You cannot play both at the court at the same time against the Celtics at the end of the game. It will not work. I can promise you that right now. And they're going to have to figure out a way to work around that. But I think I'm kind of with you with the Knicks maybe being the biggest threat when we talk about the rosters shrink come postseason, right? You
Yeah.
only usually play probably 8-man rotations. Maybe sometimes teams will go 9, sometimes teams will go 7. That's what the Knicks do the entire regular season.
Yeah.
Josh Hart's been averaging like 42 minutes a game since the
Josh
All-Star
Hart,
break.
man, did you see that stat line from last night?
Unreal.
Pull up the exact numbers here, but that
You
shit was
got
crazy.
Precious Achua as well, has been playing like 40 minutes a night. Like they just play their guys 40 minutes. So you talk about a team that's prepared for the postseason, the bump in minutes. That's the New York Knicks. That's
Yeah.
the New York Knicks, and maybe that's a team that could match up against Boston just because they're, I guess, more used to it. But like I
think
said,
just
Johnny,
like their versatility and then it's weird. I guess they have versatility on both ends because as good as Drew Holiday and Derek White are, I don't think that matters for Brunson sometimes. I think he can just get to that mode where he does just explode no matter who's defending him. And then you have Julius Randle, who before the injury, I got to give credit where credit's due. We ragged on him all playoffs last year. He was playing unbelievable basketball. And
absolutely.
Then it seems like OG Anunoby has – I don't know. I maybe I didn't pay enough attention to his offensive game in Toronto, but it seems like he has more of a bag since he got traded to the New York Knicks.
Yeah.
And obviously, what they can do defensively if they get Mitchell Robinson back. Hartenstein's been playing really well for them. I just
Dante DiVincenzo.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a guy who's needed to step up with injuries. And that kind of benefits a team come playoffs, right? Where you have these guys forced to step up. That, like I said, with the Knicks, they're playing 40 minutes. It's like, oh, yeah, we have a guy out. All right, Dante, you're playing 42 minutes tonight. No other team really does that. So I think that kind of benefits the New York Knicks. And that's the only one where I'd be like, all right, I think the Knicks, especially too, we talk about home court advantage, playoffs in the Garden, Donnie, not easy. Not the easiest road arena to play in. So
that's what I wanted to bring this up. Actually, when you were talking about the Bucks, the Bucks were 17-17 on the road this year. The Celtics are 29-3 at home.
I ain't gonna get it done. That's not gonna get it done, Milwaukee. That's not gonna get. That's bad though for a team who of their record to be 500 on the road.
That's the thing I was gonna say, and I know we're kind of all over the place right now as far as going back and forth. So try to stay with us here. But the Bucks, when I watch them, I can believe that they can compete with the Celtics because of the way their wins look. But take the loss like they took to the Kings last night. Like their losses look so bad. but then their wins look so good. Even when they didn't have Giannis for that game, and Dame erupts for 40 points last week.
Yep.
It's so bizarre. It's almost like it's still the same. I think the vibes are a little better since Doc has joined, but this is kind of the way they've been going all season. It's like they go on like a 3-4 game tear where they look really good and they can compete with anyone. And Dame's hitting his shots, and then a game or two later, Dame's not hitting his shots, and Giannis didn't put up superstar numbers tonight. And we saw what we saw last night. They get blown up by the Kings. Yeah. Is the Kings' first win against the Bucks since 2016.
Crazy. That's crazy. I didn't realize that when I saw that. But you're right with the Bucks. It's like their wins look so impressive sometimes because they will just run teams out of the gym by halftime. And it's like no one's stopping Giannis tonight. And then there's other games where, and I don't know if this is partly Giannis's fault, scheme. I don't know what it is. But there's games where the Bucks will be down 10 and it's the third quarter and Giannis has 6 shot attempts.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? So, but I will give the Bucks, I guess the benefit of the doubt when we get to the playoffs, because we've seen it obviously in their title run. We've seen it in previous playoffs. That is when Giannis goes full volume mode. Offenses run through me. And I don't know if he'll change it with Dame this year. I don't think he should. I think the ball should go through Giannis come playoffs, especially the way his playmaking's been this year. But that's the one thing that I like. I just can't get a feel on the Bucks. I feel like some games that they just kind of disappear, and it's like, yeah, we're just gonna kick it to Malik Beasley. It's like, okay, that's fine if he's going 6 from 8 from the field, but when he's 0 of 5 from 3, that hurts you. Yeah. So it's you get so much inconsistency with the outside shooting in Milwaukee this year, especially Dame, who I didn't think we'd ever talk about with inconsistency of outside shooting, but he has been to the point where he's hitting 7, 8 threes to where he's 1 of 9. And it's just, I don't know, Dunny. I don't think that holds up in a 7-game playoff series, especially against the Boston Celtics. Like I said, are going to punish you when you go on those cold stretches. It's just how it happens.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. And like, I do get hesitant when I talk about the Bucks because obviously, they still don't have Middleton back too. But
right.
It gets to a point where we haven't seen this group with Middleton in so long. And I don't know, like how much of a difference maker is he actually going to be? It feels shitty saying that, but
we saw a little bit this year and it's like,
yeah,
he hasn't looked like the Middleton of a few years ago. I'll tell you that much.
Right. And I do think he's a difference maker. I don't want people to get it twisted, but I don't think he's not the difference maker that's going to push them past the Celtics and for me to be overconfident about the Bucks, like on that same level as Boston. Right. I think he will make a difference in the series, whether it's to get past Boston or not. I don't think so. Who else do you want to talk about here in the East? What do you think of the Orlando Magic? Do you think they could win a first round playoff series?
I'm going to call them a fun team. All right. So I think the Magic are fun. I think they're probably a year ahead of schedule, to be honest with you. I really like the way the Magic look this year, but they're going to have to get matched up against probably either another young team. I don't think they beat the Knicks. I don't think they beat the Cavs. I don't think they beat the Bucks, and I don't think they beat the Celtics. So if the Magic is, I think they could beat Indiana. Absolutely. I really do. Yeah. I kind of want that series. I don't think we'd get it because it would have to be 4 or 5. So you'd have to probably have
to keep moving up.
Cleveland or the Knicks to fall out, which I don't think we'll see that. I just think the Knicks are eventually going to get to the point where they'll be healthy enough where they're going to stop falling. And I think Cleveland is too talented to, I think they're 4 games ahead of the Magic to lose that amount of ground at the end of the season. So I don't think we get it. I'd love to see Magic Pacers, but yeah, I think the Magic can beat pretty much any of those teams besides probably the top 4. I'm calling them a fun team because I don't think they're a realistic threat. I think maybe they'll steal a game or 2 against one of these big teams, like maybe Magic Bucks. They steal a couple games, and it's like, oh, this is a fun team. But I don't think they're a realistic threat, Tony. I don't know about you, but I feel like they're ahead of schedule. They got a good, young core, but at the end of the day, it's a young core.
Yeah.
So much inexperience here. Very, very few of these guys have had postseason runs.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of with you for that reason. My biggest thing is I'm just excited to see Paolo as like a 1 in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
I want to see how he handles the moment. I want to see if he acts even more like the guy on that stage. And yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I would love a Pacers Magic series.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, it's not out of the question, but like you said, the Knicks would have to drop because between the three teams, Knicks, Magic, and Pacers, it's 4-5-6 right now. There's only a game and a half separating the Pacers at 6 from the Knicks at 4. And then only a full game there for the Magic and Knicks. But yeah, I think the Magic, could compete with the rest of the bottom teams in the East. The 76ers are an interesting one who just took a beating from the Knicks last night. I saw a report this morning that Joel Embiid is nowhere close to a return.
Yep.
And so, the fingers crossed, high hopes is that he's back for the last week of the regular season. That looks like a stretch and far-fetched at this point. I mean, it's possible that Philly falls to 8 and they get bounced in the first game of the play-in.
But I would not be surprised if Philly kept falling. I think you're right. They fall to 8 and Embiid doesn't even come back. They don't even bring him back for the play-in. The news we have heard, I just feel like it's just going to keep getting delayed and delayed and delayed to the point where we're not going to force this guy back at 75% in a play-in game just to lose by the Celtics in 5 games. Right? Yeah. To be honest with you, that's the whole thing for me. It's just I can't get behind Philly. I've watched even after the deals.
Kelly Oubre was their leading scorer last night, bro.
Tyrese Maxey, I like him. He's not a 1. He's not a 1.
No.
He's just not, and that's why I talked about it earlier. Why I would have gave Sengun most improved player over Maxey just for that reason. I think you can build a team around Sengun. I don't think you can around Maxey. No discredit to Maxey. I think when he's on, but he's not a 1. He's not a team. He's not a guy you can rely on a night-to-night basis to carry a team. Look, the players around him, Dunny, subpar.
Yeah,
it's not a great team.
I mean, Mo Bamba started for them at center last night, and he had 2 rebounds.
Yeah, let's not hate on Mo Bamba, but I get it. Let's not take unnecessary shots at Mo Bamba, but I get it. I get it.
I thought we were shitting on the role players, bro. I thought that's what we were doing. No, I can go back to my Buddy Hield thoughts that I've had since the trade deadline, bro. Because he played 24 minutes and only had 9 points.
Yeah. Kyle Lowry, what are we doing,
bro? I literally
what are we doing?
I said to my roommates last night, Kyle Lowry looks weird as fuck in a Philly uniform.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's sad, man. It's a weird watch when you throw on a Sixers game. I'm in agreement, man. I mean, if they fall and they're in play-in territory and they're stuck there and they get the 8 seed, or even if they get bounced,
that's what I'm saying. Right now they're playing the Heat, right? They would play the Heat right now.
They would play the Heat right now, yep.
And then they'd lose that. Heat are beating them. Heat aren't losing to Philly in a play-in game right now without Embiid. If Embiid comes back, we'll have a different conversation. But without Embiid, they're not losing. Then they play either the Bulls or the Hawks. I think the Bulls beat the Hawks at this point, the way the Hawks have been trending. And the Chicago Bulls, I could see them beating Philly, Dunny. I could see the Bulls beating Philly and getting that 8.
Could the Bulls beat the Heat in a play-in game? Or no?
That one, I don't think so. That one,
I would obviously lean.
I think Bam's going to start bullying Vooch at that point. Vooch does not like the physical centers. It has never been his.
Oh, he doesn't want to be a center.
Exactly. He wants to shoot threes. But that's never his best matchup is a guy like Bam. And the Bulls, Kobe White's been playing great. DeMar was playing out of his mind. Eastern Conference Player of the Week last week. Shout out DeMar. But I think the Heat just have the right matchups against the Bulls, if that makes sense.
I do too.
I think they have the right matchups. They have the size. I think the Bulls can beat Philly, though. If Embiid does not come back in the play-in, I think we could see the Bulls beat Atlanta, beat Philly, And next thing you know, the Bulls are the 8th seed, and they're going to get absolutely steamrolled in 4 games, but they're going to play 4 more playoff games. And that's the nicest thing I can say about the Bulls right now. And I know JBC was probably loving the start of that conversation, now hated it.
Yeah, I don't think this yes is to what you just said.
No, it was for the first part of the conversation. But I really, truly believe that the Bulls can get out of the play-in and get into the playoffs. I don't think they could beat the Heat, but I think they match up well against the Hawks. They can beat the Hawks. And then I'm telling you, Embiid-less Philly, I think the Bulls can beat them. I don't think that's too crazy.
No, I think I'd probably take them. I'd probably bet on them if that was the case. Just from what I'm seeing, I mean, we talked about it. I'm very uninspiring basketball when you watch the 76ers without Embiid. And I'm sorry, but I think we can put some of this Tobias Harris shit to bed about how he's underrated. I think it's just it's the same thing with Maxey. Like you just said, he's not a one. Like
no, but I also think Tobias has never been even considered the way Maxey has been.
No,
you know
no.
I mean?
I was saying it as in like that. This just goes to show how good Embiid is and how much better he makes his teammates.
Yeah.
That's the connection I'm drawing there because like Maxey, the beginning of the year was like, oh my god, like all-star, possibly all-star starter, most improved. This guy's a number one. He could average 30 on his own team. Joel goes down. No, that's not the case. Tobias has these, 30-point blow-up games where he shoots unbelievable splits from the field, and he's all over the place. That's when he's next to Embiid. Halfway through the game last night, I think he had taken like 3 or 4 shots at halftime, and that's just what some of these guys look like when Embiid's not out there. I did want to, when you're talking about Bulls and Hawks in the play-in, have the Bulls and the Hawks been in the play-in every year since it's been introduced?
I feel like it has to be at this point. They are, I mean, JBC would know better than anyone, but I feel like the Bulls and the Hawks are always just locked in that 10 spot. They're just always there. They're never bad enough to fully tank and get a good lottery pick. They're never going to win a championship, but they're just always there. They're always good enough. And you know what? You look at the play-in right now in the East, Donnie, good enough might be enough to get to the postseason.
Yeah.
And, your prize is to get swept by the Boston Celtics or face, but regardless, like that's enough to get a couple home playoff games.
This is what JBC actually meant to say here. He says misery.
Yeah, I figured it wasn't yes. It was only yes to the first part of that. But I JBC, I'm not biased here. I'm being nice. I genuinely believe the Bulls can get out of the play-in this year. I really do.
He says Bulls in 6.
Bulls in 6. Oh man. Oh, I would love the odds
of
that. JBC.
I'll welcome the Chicago Bulls as an 8 seed, please.
I know you would. You know what? I'll be nice to the Bulls one more time. Kobe White, too. I know we talked about Maxey. Sengun is most improved. Kobe White could very well win the award. I know Max is going to get it, which I still don't. I think it should go to Sengun. I know with the injury, it's not going. Kobe White might be the most improved player in the NBA. I'm not just – because Maxey and Sengun were already good before this year started, right? We knew they were good. It was just like, let's see what they could do maybe when they get, not more minutes, but I guess – more of like the offense, right? Let him, and obviously Max's was opened up with an injury to Embiid. Sengun just kind of became the guy on the Rockets. Kobe White went from a guy that people were kind of almost labeling a bust the past couple seasons to the second best option on the Chicago Bulls. And I'm saying that when Levine and Vucevic are healthy.
Oh.
I'm saying after DeMar, I think Kobe White's their second best option. And there are times in the game where it's almost like the way the game's going, sometimes they're like, all right, it's Kobe's game tonight. Then the next night, oh, it's DeMar's game. That's a huge jump. That's a huge jump.
Yeah, he's averaging 19 and a half points, nearly 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He's shooting almost 40% from 3 this year. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy I loved in college.
Me too.
I think you're right. I think probably both things are true. I think he did have a bit of a slow start to his NBA career, but it's not that easy when you're a undersized guard and trying to find playing time on that Bulls group when he first got there. When DeRozan had just got there, Levine was healthier at the time, and then Kobe obviously was just a young guy trying to get minutes at that time.
Right.
But Yeah, I think that's a good point, and it doesn't help Maxey the way he's been playing lately and the way Philly's been playing lately, where the Bulls have kind of been staying alive, and it seems like Colby's kind of been getting better as the year goes on. Eastern Conference, though, anything else here? Did we not spend enough time on one of these teams? I think we maybe didn't give enough love to the Cavs, but
yeah, I was gonna say I don't think we talked about the Cavs much at all, just besides they're dealing with injuries.
yeah, and like 5-5 in their last 10, that sucks. But obviously, the Mitchell injury, Mobley rolled his own ankle on his other ankle, so they're going through it as far as injuries go. But I mean, they're 3 games up on the Knicks for the 3 seed. I think they'll probably hold that 3 seed. And then,
I think so too.
if the Cavs are healthy, I think they have pretty favorable matchups no matter who ends up at that
too.
6th seed.
I agree. I think
Indiana would be a fucking awesome series. I kind of hope it's Cavs Pacers, but I think even so that the Cavs would like that matchup, I think. And then, Magic and Sixers as well. I think they'll
the only one would probably be Miami. If Miami gets up to that 6, then that might be kind of a nightmare matchup for the Cavs.
Yeah.
But you're like, this is what I was talking about, right? With Orlando, Indiana, they're fun teams. Mm-hmm. But the Cavs, I think, a little more experienced. Donovan, if you go Orlando, Indiana, Cavs, which play do I trust the most out of 3 teams in the playoffs? Donovan Mitchell. Yeah. Donovan Mitchell. He's shown it before. He stepped his game up in the postseason when it matters. So it's just a matter of getting healthy. But yeah, the Cavs are weird in my mind, Dunny, because as Jake says, it's like every time like he starts to buy in, they give him a reason not to, right? And that's why his mindset has always been, I'm not going to fall for this trap, not going to fall for this team. But they just have stretches. They'll just have 2-3 week stretches where I'm like, this might be the only team in the East to give the Celtics a good fight. Then they beat the Celtics at the Dean Wade game, which at the start of that game, I thought the Celtics were going to run them out of the gym. And then here come the Cavs. And then the fourth quarter, I mean, we've seen the Cavs do it before. I think they could beat Milwaukee. I really do. I think a healthy Cavs team could beat Milwaukee as a 2-3 matchup. I think they get past any team really in the first round besides probably the Heat. But we saw last year, how high were we on the Cavs last year? And then they just got bullied physically by the Knicks. It looked like they weren't prepared for postseason basketball. That's something they got to change, because if you have Mobley and Jared Allen, 2 pretty much 7-footers, you can't get out rebounded like you did last year in the playoffs. And that's been the biggest, I guess, worry with the Cavs the past few years, is they just become such a soft team in the playoffs. And until I see it, it's kind of like the opposite of Miami, right? I've already seen it in the playoffs with Miami. I'm not jumping ship until they show me that they're not going to step up to that playoff style of basketball. With the Cavs, I'm the same way. Yeah, I'm not going to trust them until they show me they can actually not be soft in the playoffs, where they can step up, where they can play these physical games, because they do it in the regular season.
Yep.
And then just kind of disappear. So the Cavs are a weird team where talent-wise, I think they could go to the Eastern Conference Finals, but it's the opposite of Miami with me. Until I see it, I'm not going to believe it with the Cavs. So it's hard for me to put them over any team besides, like I said, the young, fun teams, right? Mm-hmm. Indiana, Orlando. I guess you could throw Philly in there if Embiid doesn't come back, and then Chicago, right? Those are probably the 4 teams I'd take the Cavs. Other than that,
Yeah. Yeah, it's oddly just as interesting in the East as it is the West. I know the West is a little more exciting, how tight it is. I think maybe star power throughout the Western Conference is a little better than the East. Obviously, the Joel Embiid injury doesn't help with that argument, but Eastern Conference should be fun. Play-in's gonna, that's always popcorn, even though the Bulls and Hawks are kind of taken over the play-in the East for basically since it started. But yeah, we have a lot of shit to look forward to in the Eastern Conference here. Like we said,
it's not as crazy as the West, but it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, we have a couple fun teams who I'm excited to see the group, like the Pacers in the playoffs. I'm excited to see Paolo specifically, but then just the entire Magic team. So there's one beast in the East, but it should be a good playoffs regardless. That is our Eastern Conference talk, and we're going to end the episode with Dunny's old man take of the week.
I might have a little bonus. Might be a bonus, Steve.
Yes.
Call it rant, whatever you want. We're going to be two old men right now complaining about everything.
Yeah, old man yelling at the clouds. That's me and Steve. My old man take of the week is I want them to do away with definitely the City Edition uniforms in the NBA, but I think I might be ready to say all alternate uniforms. Man.
Wow. Really?
I'm just, and obviously it's not every team, but there's specific teams that ruin this for me.
Give me a few examples.
Well, and I don't really even hate the Pacers jersey that much, the one they wore in the play-in or the in-season tournament. But now when I turn on 2K and I'm playing against someone who's using the Pacers, if they pick that jersey, it changes the court in 2K too. I can't escape it, man. And then you turn on a Wizards game and they're wearing a jersey that looks like an AAU jersey that your parents had to pay $500 for, but all it is a bunch of colors that aren't even the Wizards colors. And it's
what do you think about like Milwaukee's, the cream ones or the Warriors? Like,
I don't mind the cream and the green, but truthfully, I hate that the Milwaukee has a blue alternate. I think that's stupid.
Fair enough.
And it's an old man take for a reason. I know I'm not going to hit on these every week, but I don't know. Something about it just bugs me. And obviously I was brought up with the Celtics, who have the most boring but the most classic jerseys in the NBA. But even, the stuff that they've tried to do in the past, I don't really like when they switch it up. It bugs me, and this goes into teams having alternate uniforms. It bugs me when a team's wearing white on the road. I think that the home whites look really good in the NBA. I think it was a cool thing that they stuck to for a while. I think the Lakers did it with their yellow, and then they kind of did the white where they pleased. But yeah, I don't know, maybe a third alternate jersey, but I think it's become too much, if you ask me. And I think it's just the shitty ones that ruin it for the rest of the NBA.
I don't mind it in the regular season, to be honest with you. It doesn't really bother me. I don't pay too much attention to it. I think it brings more good than bad sometimes if there's some really cool jerseys, right? If it's a bad jersey, they're just not going to wear it again. And I know there's sometimes they repeat the bad jersey. It doesn't bother me. I do agree, though, if we get to the postseason, I want to see one team wear their jersey, another team wear their jersey. I don't want it switched up. But regular season doesn't really bother me. I get what you're saying with 2K with the courts, because
are you kidding me? You can do it in the game too.
Yeah. It's like, what happened here? But it doesn't really bother me. Last week I was in full agreement of your old man take of the week. This week I'm gonna give you like a 4 out of 10. I'm gonna give you like a 4 out of 10 because I think it's more, not complaining to complain at that point, but I think it's like it's not that big of a deal where. Right. It's just like, all right, it's the jersey at the end of the day. There are some stupid jerseys, don't get me wrong. And I have been in full, I guess, agreement, I would say, or I don't know. I've been in the camp that logos and jerseys across all 4 major sports have kind of trended in the wrong direction. I want them to bring back some of the older logos, some of the older jerseys. But in terms of switching it up all the time, that's kind of always been the NBA's gimmick a little bit. They've always switched jerseys more often than the other sports. As long as in the playoffs, I'm getting like the green Celtics, I'm getting the yellow Lakers, I'm getting the standard jerseys of all the teams across the board. I'm okay with it in the regular season. It doesn't bother me. There's some bad ones, but I'm not losing sleep over it.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. It's just once I saw it on 2K, I was like, okay, this is enough to at least irk me a little bit. I'm gonna make this the old man take of the week. So that's it. Yeah, I'm not entirely against it. I also know a lot of it's a money thing or a branding thing, and I think it's cool that younger NBA fans can pick from the new shiny jerseys if they want. I just think some of them are such misses. And some of them, it's like when I turn on a game and I'm watching with other people who maybe aren't as tuned in as me, and they're like, what? Like, I feel like for the most part, you shouldn't have to be watching the game for a few minutes and be like, who is that other team?
Right.
Like, I don't want the uniforms to be that off of the team's core colors. And then a step further, the court, too. If you can't tell by the court, I feel like that's a bigger issue. And that goes into what you're talking about some of the logos being just shit now. But yeah, I'm not like too hyped up on that one as I was on the the one from last week. But let's hear your old man rant. What do you got?
I got a rant here. We'll have the Dunny's old man take of the week, the Steve rant. Because, Dunny, you know, we're always over basketball social media. We always see it everywhere, the clips. We always see the people chirping in the comments. There's been this new trend starting. And this goes back years of just people complaining about professional athletes online. For some reason, discrediting everything these guys do. There is this new trend that has been viral on TikTok, viral on Twitter, aka X, viral on Reels. We're done with the 90s trend. I don't know if you've seen this.
Yeah, I don't really understand it. I have seen it, though.
Basically, these 14-year-olds looking up old highlights from games in the 90s and trying to say what Jordan did, what Magic did, what Bird did, just not impressive, that they would be role players in today's game, that they're bums, essentially discrediting them. These are the same people, mind you, that are complaining about the current players in the NBA, where someone has a wild highlight. Like, I want Luka to win MVP. I don't want Shea to win it. But people will call Shea a free throw merchant. Watch one game. Stop it. Stop it. Like, stop it right there. Oh, Luka's stat padding. It's like, just watch a game. Watch a game. But this we're done with the 90s trend. I'm done with the we're done with the 90s trend. Because I'm sick and tired of it. We're talking about Michael Jordan, who's been considered the greatest basketball player of all time. And the Jordan-LeBron debate has been going on basically since LeBron's career started. Yeah. And we got these LeBron fanboys saying we're done with the 90s and finding clips of maybe Michael Jordan just making a mistake, making a turnover. They're saying he can't triple with his left hand. There are guys saying he's a bad Jaylen Brown in today's game, which no discredit to Jaylen Brown, but come on, what are we talking about? Yeah. What are we talking about? And also too, Duddy, and this is why I can't stand the NBA, because it doesn't really happen in the other sports. A little bit here in baseball, not so much in football. Actually, football's kind of the opposite. They really don't do it at all. Hockey, not as much. Like, we're comparing eras here, man. We're comparing eras. Like, I get it. I get that you're saying Wilt Chamberlain probably wouldn't put up 50 points and 20 rebounds a game in today's game. I understand that. I get he played 50 years ago, but you got to compare him to what he played in his era. You can't just be like, oh, I'm discrediting him because of who he played against. I'm discrediting because of what he did. Oh, he didn't have an outside shot. No one had an outside shot back then. There was a guy showing a highlight of the Supersonics game. I think it was Supersonics Bulls. I can't remember. One of these were done with the 90s trend. He's going through the video, watching the highlights. And Sean Kemp made a mid-range. And the commentators were like, oh, he's got that in his bag. Like, what a shot. And the guy's like, bro, that's an easy shot for everyone here. That's not range. It's like, dude, you're comparing eras to eras. This is the 3-point era right now. Everyone's shooting threes. If you're 7'2" in today's game, you better know how to shoot a 3-pointer, or you're not getting minutes. Like, also, I don't understand.
The easiest counter argument to that is just that's how the game was played. The big guys weren't asked to shoot. They weren't asked to.
They played mid-range. The amount of mid-range shots in the 90s compared to now, like, what are we doing? And Dunny, this is what drives me nuts, because people will just take this. They'll find one clip and they'll just run with it. Or they'll find one stat and they'll just run with it. And this is what started with Wemby, of people trying to call him a bust. By the way, crickets from you guys. Your Wemby's a bust, or he's not going to hold up in the NBA. Absolute crickets, because he's putting up historic rookie numbers. Yeah. But why can't we just appreciate players in their era, dominating their era? People are like, oh, Oscar Robertson, he'd be a bench player today. I don't care. I do not care, because he was putting up crazy numbers, crazy highlights back then. I just don't understand why we in the NBA always have to compare. It's always got to compare him to him, him to him, him to him. And now they're going after Michael Jordan? Yeah. I mean, that's the one. You're going after Michael. That's the point we've gotten to, where they are actually taking time, Dunny, to find old games, to find old box scores, to find old highlights, to discredit Michael Jordan.
Yeah, the guy
what are we doing? What are we doing?
Three-peated, went and learned another professional sport, came back and three-peated again.
What are we doing? What are we doing? What is this trend? It's like you're basketball fans. Appreciate basketball.
Yeah,
The game evolves. I get it. We get it. It evolves in every sport. Technology gets better. The weight training gets better. Just guys get in better shape in general. Like everything improves. That's the point. Over time, everything's supposed to improve. Why? Why are we going back, trying to go back in time and discredit what they did? Someone said in the comments, this guy didn't play that long ago. Someone said in the comments that Shaq would be a bad Bam Adebayo in today's
not
game.
Even similar games.
I don't get it, Duddy. I can't do it. I just can't do it.
Just to hate. Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother story about NBA fans. Is just the unwanted hate for so many guys. I saw a TikTok channel with a pretty big following. Their sports account, and I heard them talking about how Jason Tatum wasn't elite yesterday. I just had to close. I had to close my phone and be like, yeah, I'm just doing this to myself at this point because it's the discourse gets a little bit crazy. But just to put a bow on what you're saying, like people act as if, just for a few examples here. I don't know why these guys came to my mind, but like Jordan, Bird, Tracy McGrady. I mean, you mentioned the big Oscar Robertson. Like, do these people actually believe if they played in this era with this sports science, with this amount of fouling and lack of defense, like that they wouldn't put up the same numbers?
That's what I'm saying. You're telling me a 6'8" Tracy McGrady with his athleticism isn't going to put up better numbers than they put up better numbers probably than they did back then because they'd have everything.
And like, there's a reason that no one has been compared to Larry Bird, like basically before Jokic, for a reason. It's because he did shit that no one could do for fucking years until we saw a guy like Jokic. It's crazy, man. I think the negativity in general with NBA fans is so strange sometimes.
You want to know the best one, Dunny? The best one. This was like a random TikTok video I did, where they did the slide comparisons of who the old player would be in today's day. They had took 6 of the all-time greats. Who do you think they had for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? And that's where I'm going to end this rant because I'm going to get too heated. Who do you think this? And this had 20,000 likes on this stupid TikTok. Who do you think they had for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Today's comparison.
This might be even more disrespectful, but I'm just guessing based on how these have gone.
Any guess? Oh, I wish. JaVale McGee. I'm done with this. We're done with the 90s trend. Like, you're just insulting your own basketball knowledge at that point. Are you kidding me? Do they not understand what Kareem did? Like, he was the first big man who actually he had the sky hook, he had the mid-range. I don't. No, man, I can't rant. I can't rant about this because it's just gonna get me more upset. We could go on for hours just complaining about this study because we're on the same side where we both appreciate basketball, no matter what level, no matter who's playing. If we see someone who knows how to ball, they could ball. And also, too, I welcome any of these people making their little TikTok videos or their tweets about trying to discredit the all-time great. Go play a 50-year-old NBA all-time great right now, one-on-one. You'll get absolutely washed. Don't even start with me. They'd be like, I got more in my bag than this guy has. Stop it. Just stop it.
It's crazy, man. That's a good rant. That made up for my old man take. That was good. And it's just crazy, bro. It really is. Start respecting. What happened to respect your elders, man? That applies in the NBA too.
I know. I don't get it. It's like they're actively looking to discredit these guys. I don't get it.
I know I said that was going to be the last thing real quick, just because it has to do with the point you just brought up, which is a great point. And we need to change our ways in that aspect. But Adam Silver, I mean, this was something Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo were talking about when I was listening to the Bill Simmons show on Monday. But it was just something that they had made an observation about. But the defense since the All-Star break, it seems as if because totals are way down, team totals are way down, scoring averages for players are way down. They're kind of letting the defense play a little more. And then I saw a report today that this is I forget what some commission within the NBA is actually experimenting with this, and they're trying to let the defense play a little more, and they're trying to give defensive players a little bit more of a leash, which I think one would be just great for the game overall, and two, it might, close that. I think we're still gonna have our fucking crazies
Of
way out
course.
there who are gonna make those bullshit comparisons. But maybe it'll make those people in between a little happier. And I'm obviously here for it. I love defense. I love defense in the NBA.
Me too.
And I like rewarding good defensive players. And I feel like it was tough for guys who pride themselves on defense. It was tough for them for a bit there. So I haven't, once they said it, I kind of was noticing it the last couple games. But yeah, I'm here for it, man. I hope we end the season with this style of play.
Yeah, me too, and I hope it leads into the playoffs because we usually see the playoffs get more defensive, right? More physical as the playoffs go on. Obviously, you don't want, if you're playing a 7-game series, you don't want to have 150 to 145 shootout in one of the games. You just don't. Obviously, the fans want it, but the teams themselves don't. They want to change up the style a little bit. But I agree with you, Dunny. I saw unders trending big time after the All-Star break. I don't know if it's been a ref thing making, less calls on the defense, letting them be a little more physical, but I've kind of noticed it watching the games too. I'm going to try to pay more attention going forward. But one thing too, and I thought this was interesting, which I saw somewhere, which might help this going forward. What are your thoughts if they just remove defensive 3 seconds? Because I look at that rule and I go, the way that so many guys are good at drawing contact and driving, removing 3 seconds, defensive 3 seconds might actually help. And you could play a lot more different defensive schemes that way too.
Yeah, it's tough. I would have to I feel like that would honestly be one of those things where I'd have to see it for a couple games because I think I would worry that people would just go big and then, if there's a poor shooting lineup for the other team, just kind of camp 2 guys in the paint.
Yeah, but I also think you can counter that. There's enough shooting in the NBA nowadays where I don't think if we're talking about this 20 years ago, right? You just park someone big in the paint and the game is so three-point dependent now. I don't think it'd be a huge deal. I just think it would help because what do we see all the time with, not ball dominant guys, but the stars that drive, so many of them will kick it out and get assists because they're passing to wide open threes because they're forced to come off and double them, right?
Yeah.
You have a guy already established his position in the paint, might change it up a little bit.
It down. I don't hate that. I think that'd be a rule that I would love to see them implement in the preseason or something.
Yeah,
or,
test it out.
Summer league and even just small scale basketball like that and just small scale, obviously they're professionals, but you know what I mean. But yeah, I don't hate that. It's kind of cool. We were talking about this in a group chat a couple weeks ago. I wouldn't hate the EuroLeague rules in some capacity. I don't think adopting all of them, but as far as the rim protection goes and being able to hit the ball off the rim and being able to goaltend is what it's called in the NBA, obviously, but they don't have that.
The one I haven't warmed up onto that I know Jake likes. He's not.
I don't like it either. We're on the same page.
I don't want to take away the corner 3. It just spreads the floor so well. I don't think it would just make it too close.
Well, it's not even just taking away the corner 3. It's there's a lot of guys who are just have perfected driving baseline too. And you can't start in the corner and drive baseline if there's no corner 3s anymore. Yeah, I'm with you. We're in lockstep on that take. I'm with you. But we'll see. We'll see with the defense. I hope it changes some things for the better. And like you said, we should expect that type of basketball for the playoffs anyway. That's going to do it for Happy Hour Hoops, guys. Once again, we're brought to you by WinStreakz. It's simple. You pick teams to win games, accumulate points based off those games, and then win cash prizes weekly. WinStreakz is 100% free to play. You can make up to 5 picks per day in the NBA, NFL, NHL, college basketball, MLB's right around the corner. It's all great, guys. 100 players win cash prizes every week up to $2,000. Again, there's no deposits ever. 100% free to play. Use our code HHH when you sign up for the WinStreakz app. That is HHH for our referral code. And thank you all for listening, guys. We will see you next week. We will have our college basketball March Madness bracket to fill out as a show. We're going to talk about Wemby a little bit. I'll have another old man take. And,
I might have a rant.
Yeah. See you guys.